flowers grow.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to say a good morning to everyone here. Let me welcome you to the second day of the International Women in Sports Congress, which is held by IWISC. We are extremely excited to see some familiar faces, as well as those of you who are here for the first time. We have a very interesting agenda ahead of us today. Thank you for being here. Despite the weather forecast, it was supposed to rain today, and despite the temptation of Ludwigas, I know that some of you were there in the wee hours of the morning. So we're going to begin with the first roundtable. We're going to bring together some of the projects that are underway here in Catalonia, as well as all across Europe, so that we get inspired by the following speakers, which I'll introduce one by one. If you can please come up to the stage, Laura Ràfols from the Catalan Football Federation, Lydia Pena from the Catalan Handball Federation, Olga Praderas from the Basketball Federation, Ainé Power, Sara Massini, and Milena de Murga. I will be facilitating this panel. My name's Meritxell, and I'm in charge of communication at IWISC. If you can please take a seat. As you can see, there are many interesting projects to present, but we have very little time, so this will be like a speed dating session. I'm going to introduce each of them one after the other, and they will let you know more about their projects. While you're listening to your colleagues, if you want to make any short comment on what is being said, feel free to do so. I'll start by introducing Laura. Laura became the first female player of the football team at Barca when she was 14. She is a physical therapist. She works for both the men's and women's team at Barca. She has coaching experience, and she has worked in the media. She was chosen an executive of the Catalan Football Federation in March, and she is one of the members of Women in Sports Commission. Laura, we are all aware that this past year has been a watershed moment in the history of female football. What is the current situation? Tell us in numbers, and the specific project led by the Catalan Federation, És Orgullosa. Well, that's the title. Yes, she's proud. It started off in 2018. We had 2,000 members, and right now we have about 17,000 licenses if we count both sports together. And what this program aims to achieve is to find girls who want to play football and to provide them with the necessary means to do so. And we do this with training. We train coaches and referees so that young women can also be trained and educated to do that. And that is our goal, to find them, to locate these girls, and to raise awareness of in the world of female sport. with regular football and seven-a-side football, and that's why we have obviously had several awards this past year, and this has helped us become more visible and to have more role models. So when you're a young girl and then you see on the telly or on a newspaper that there are other women playing, you realize that you can also do that. When I started playing, there were no other girls. I didn't have anyone to look up to. And now having Aitana and many others is quite helpful for families. So what we do at the Catalan Football Federation is to give a very wide range of options so that you can play in your own town or a nearby town, and also with boys, because as of this season, any girl can play with any man's team as well through our federation. So there are mixed teams, right? I mean, yes, they do exist. They are a reality. As long as they're members of the Catalan Federation, not in the rest of Spain, because obviously we don't have the power to implement that. But if they live in the south of Catalonia and they don't have a team nearby and they do want to play football, we want them to feel free and to have options so that there are no more barriers along the way. So that's what we have achieved. And that's what's most important, for all girls to be able to play. What's the most difficult part of this process? You're working at the grassroots level, right? But what hinders you the most in terms of promoting female sports? Well, there's something which is quite difficult. And sometimes it has to do with the families. Some of the parents claim that football is not for girls. It's a sport for boys. Can't you believe it? I mean, we are still struggling with the parents, and they keep saying, "Oh, you'll get over this. It's just a phase, you know. I'm sure that you will play in the playground at school, but then you will probably dance or do something more girl-like." And, you know, there are a lot of cliches, so we talk to them and we say it's completely normal, and they just want to play this sport. And people should understand that it's as healthy for girls as it is for boys. Are you encountering any allies in this fight? Well, a bit of everything, both allies and enemies, mind you. What's important is to, well, once you realize that people don't believe in this, you need to understand why. I mean, it's not cast in stone, right? You need to let them know that it's only natural for kids to play any sport they like, which in my case is football. And, well, to make it easier for them to be able to, well, to be taught and for them to change their mind. Okay, so at the Women in Sports Commission, probably since you joined, and other colleagues as well, you have been tackling new challenges. What are they? Well, there's a whole slew of them, because at the end of the day, you know, Catalonia is quite a vast area, and we want to foster female football, but it's completely different if you're working in Barcelona, Girona, or the Ebre area in the south. So one has to adapt to the specific reality. The first thing that we undertook was to include girls in the Catalan team, in the national team. If we need new coaches and referees, we need those women. If we don't have them ourselves, how can we expect clubs to do the same? So we hired female coaches for the Catalan teams, both for the male and female sections. And I think well, the opposite can also be true. You know, you can have a female coach training a man's team, and we are as valid as they are. Well, that's quite inspiring. And I can see that people are nodding, so they seem to agree. I'm sure that we will agree on many points. Let me introduce Lydia Pena, who's Vice President of the Catalan Handball Federation. She has a degree in sports science and she has an MBA. She's been a player since she was very small, from the Maresme area. She has played for the Spanish team, and ever since she stopped playing, she's now managing several teams. The Catalan Handball Federation established an equality plan. You say that it's not actually a plan, it's an all-encompassing program, and we would like to know more about it. Okay, good morning. It is an equality plan. You know that there are a lot of people that are talking about this kind of plans, and one of the goals that we set for ourselves at the Federation, when Jaume requested it from us, was to work together so that, women's sports and specifically handball could become more, could get more and more exposure. And we talked to several stakeholders to roll out an equality program. So rather than a plan, we wanted to get all clubs involved because we didn't want to have a document for the federation itself. An equality plan is something that you yourself come up with and then roll out internally, whereas we wanted a program to be deployed across all clubs. And it should include licenses, referees, coaches, and all the problems we have. Also female managers, and with the involvement of sports boards. Let me be critical about the real situation. We speak about equality plans all day long. We can speak about equality programs, but then you don't get as many people involved. So our goal was to approach this plan at the Federation. I'm quite insistent, and we held a first meeting point blank, forcing a lot of women to come and helping them and become more involved from different boards. And we managed to get, during that first meeting where we were kickstarting this whole process, as well, to get them on board so that these would be the result of our common effort. And hopefully we wanted this to become much bigger. We spoke with people at the INEF, the school sports studies university. We held 2 other meetings, and in the third meeting, I was there, my daughter was there who's a player, and 3 other people from the federation. So we started off quite strong, but then it fizzled out. So we worked on the corporate image, on the wording of the plan. We had a lot of documents to show, and then the pandemic began. Obviously, we have all been hit by the pandemic, so we had to rethink how to work on this equality plan. And now it has been commissioned to other people who have worked together with MINEF and who are working on gender equality. And they built on what we had achieved with other stakeholders, and well, now we have other people involved in the process. The program was presented, when was it, in August or July? At INEF facilities during a great event, and that was the kickoff event. And what is the goal behind it? It has been created from the inside outwards, meaning we want people to realize that most of the impactful athletes and images out there are men, not women. We want to do the opposite. We want to put the women first. For a couple of years, we've been promoting the enforcement of quotas in hiring women and having female athletes in all positions in a club, because sometimes people don't think they should also change office positions. So that's what we're trying to do at the Federation. We want more and more clubs to get on board. Obviously, we have a department for communication. We have a whole department devoted to referees, to coaches, to players. So it's broken down. We have the whole package. And I believe that if you are working on an equality plan, you need to think of, all these different roles to be played. And what we're realizing is that when the Federation provides this information, and it's impactful information, the clubs accompany you and they join your efforts. And once we have them with us, we will start with the second stage, the second step, which is to apply this kind of rules to clubs, through licenses. We'll take stock of what they have. That will be the basis of our work. We hope to be able to do this in 3 years. Those are the goals that we have set for ourselves. However, and I'm truly sorry, I believe that we keep discussing equality plans, integration programs, but still, in actual life, people don't get that much that involved. I mean, not a lot of work is done. And given that there are a lot of women in this forum, I believe, what I would like to tell you is please be more proactive. Because, well, that's the hard truth. Most women, when we become of a certain age, stop being active and we leave our posts. And I'm sorry for bringing this sad note, but it's the truth. Well, I think it's quite interesting for you to have mentioned this. Yesterday we were saying that if you don't speak about something, it just doesn't exist. So what you're saying is we should be quantifying and assessing the number of licenses and impactful actions, because they're extremely important, so that both men and women roll up their sleeves and start working. You're right. Men should join these efforts too. Yes, they do, now and then. Okay, I'll now give the floor to Olga Praderas, who has a degree in fine arts and the media science. She's a member of the Catalan Basketball Federation board, and she chairs the Female Basketball Federation. She has done so for the past 4 years. She's also quite active in Girona. Olga has been heading a campaign, the Mana Canvi, Ask for Change, from the Catalan Basketball Federation. What's that change about? Well, they just said it. I believe that they gave us a very clear picture. It's a campaign that was the result of a previous analysis. We took stock of all of the shortcomings that basketball clubs were showing, and we worked up a working plan. We decided it was important to establish new programs and to raise awareness among the population about the need to change. What should be changed? Well, we believe that this situation is not natural. We don't believe that girls should be playing some kind of sports and boys some others. We believe that girls should be able to become coaches as well, and not only for children, because we are seen as mothers and caretakers. And same thing goes for athletes. Sure, we're a federation with a high number of licenses for young women, 38%. All in all, but we still need to find out why when they become teenagers they just leave us. We need to ask ourselves the tough questions, and then once we have answers, we need to share them so that everyone gets involved. That's why we came up with this campaign, Ask for Change, and there's a lot of viral content on social media, and these questions should touch all of us so that change becomes a reality. If we can do that first on ourselves and then in our communities, this change will be much more powerful. And we need to empower our female athletes, coaches, executives, referees. It is very important for us to take a step. And we really need to step up, and that can be done by consolidating an identity for a good female athlete. If you talk to young girls, you ask them, are you an athlete? And they say, no. But you're training 3 times a week. Why don't you consider yourself an athlete? Boys do. And so it has to do with our own stereotypes. So based on all of this information, we design a series of actions, an equality plan, promoting our website with more resources so that female players become well known. Also providing training to all of our employees from a gender perspective, so that they can also call into question many of the things that we take for granted every day, but they might also be changed. And then we've been working on a program called Mentoring Female Coaches. We have already provided this program for a year. We want young women to take on more challenges and to pursue this sports career. And well, I think that we're making a lot of headway. And we will have a second stage of this progress, similar to what my colleague said, but we're going to work on teaching strategies. We want to offer tools so that clubs can use them, because obviously clubs are a channel to reach out to families, to potential coaches, women who can become also executives in clubs. So we're going to offer them not only informational talks, but also tools that can help clubs bring this to reality. Okay, so when talking about coaches and referees, is that gender perspective already included in their training? Well, in some of the programs that we are providing, for instance, on level 2, it is a mandatory subject. Yes, they are taught about gender perspective. And for everybody else, we are providing workshops. I mean, we really have to do that, because coaches would tell us the girls are not physical enough and they don't get on the floor easily, whereas boys do. Well, they don't have role models. You know, boys read superhero comic books, whereas girls, what kind of role model do they have? Princesses, right? What about the families? Are they working on that? They want a champion and a princess. Oh, come on. Obviously, princesses can also roll on the floor and then get up and nothing has happened. So you need to talk to families. Remember, your daughter wants to be a basketball player. So when she turns 16, don't tell her, quit this and start studying. So there are a lot of stereotypes that are hindering us. And I believe that sports should be used as a teaching tool. Yes, I agree that, I'm completely in favor of working with families. Yesterday, we were saying, it's important to tell your child you'll become a president one day instead of a princess. So that's something we need to change. Now, you've been working on this program for 2 years, right? Any results you can share with us? Maybe a number? Yes, very quickly. During the first mentoring program, we had 120 female coaches. We didn't expect that. And we opened a new call of interest, and all of the feedback that we have received from the program, they all said that they feel quite identified, they're part of a club. And that's very rewarding. Not only the kind of training that we've provided, the experiential setting that we offer them. We haven't yet implemented the club project, but clubs do want to change as well. We send information to all of these clubs, and they request information. They want to also publicize our materials. Through the social media, they can also join this campaign. So from that point of view, we believe there's an interest from clubs. Thank you. I'll now move to Ainé Power. She comes from the International Horse Riding Federation, and she has been there for 8 years. She was a legal advisor as well for the Boxing Federation, and in the International Riding Federation. That we were very excited to invite them, because it's one of the first federations that came up with a specific regulation to protect women against abuse and harassment. And more than 80% of victims of harassment are women, right? She will tell us more. Ainé, what is this new pioneer regulation about?
Good morning, everyone, and apologies, my level of Spanish in Catalan is very bad. I can only say some very bad words and how to order una caña and una copa, so I'm Irish. So if it's okay with you, I will speak in English, but I know there's some very good translation services. Yeah, so one of the things that it's important, I think, to speak about in sport is that participation is great, and my colleagues here have fantastic initiatives to promote participation. But one of the things that can drive people away from sport is if they have a negative experience in sport. And I'm talking here about sexual harassment, abuse, psychological abuse, bad training methods. So back in 2019, we felt as an international organisation, as the international governing body of 3 Olympic sports, we had a responsibility to take in this area. And it was on our radar. We could hear that there were cases and people were starting to come forward, and we didn't have any really specific rules to deal with this. And we said, okay, now is the time to implement it. So we drafted our safeguarding policy against harassment and abuse. And it was a kind of a long process, because initially we needed to go to our board, to our Secretary General and our President to get their support for this project. And one of the things we said when we implemented the project was that if we're going to do this well, it needs to be effective and it can't have any kind of interference from the outside. So the way it works in our federation, there are 3 of us, myself and 2 colleagues, 1 man and another female colleague. And we have more or less operational independence for all these kind of what we call safeguarding harassment and abuse cases. And I think that's quite important and maybe a bit unique, because I think, you know, if you work in sport, you know a little bit how it works. If we notify a national federation that, for example, one of their top athletes has been accused of harassing somebody, a teammate or a young person who's training with him, the first thing, if that athlete is important to the team, one of the first things is that that federation's president will say, I need that guy for this championship that's happening next week. I'm going to call the president of the international federation and I'm going to see what I can do. And so what we said is that we cannot have this. We cannot have confidence undermined in our system like that. So we said to our Secretary General and our President, for your own protection and to protect the system, we will not share any information about the cases with you. So if you as President, if you receive that call, you can honestly say, hand on heart, I know nothing about that case. It's been handled by our safeguarding team. And it even goes further than that. And I'm not saying this has happened. Our President is a very, very good guy. But for example, we would have the authority to suspend our President, our Secretary General, a board member. Now, of course, there's systems in place where that can be challenged to an independent judicial tribunal, but that's one of the really important things, I think, to have when you're talking about this. And I listened to Anna yesterday, who was on a panel saying, you know, creating a safe environment for athletes is really important. And our sport is a little bit unique because men and women compete on an equal playing field. They compete against each other. We do not have gender categories. However, when we see the complaints that come in, the allegations that come in, 95% more of the victims are women. And so even in a sport like us, where there is mutual respect between the genders, between the sexes on the field of play, we know that female athletes are much more at risk of being a victim of harassment and abuse. And I think in sport, if we really want to get serious about growing the sport, this is something that we need to get serious, especially if you're in a position of a governing body or a club or any kind of leadership position. You need to send the message that that kind of harassment and abuse will not be tolerated. And it's a difficult process, I can tell you. It's really easy to write beautiful rules. Our rules are beautiful. Implementing them is a less beautiful process. It's hard, and you have to make tough decisions, and people will say, you know, we're equestrian sport, it's a little bit high level. People, this is not happening in our sport. You know, we're nice people. Like, this is not possible. So-and-so could not have done that. But, you know, it happens in society, and sport is a part of society. So, of course, it's happening in sport. And, of course, it's happening in our sport. So the first thing is to name it, to call it out, and then say, okay, what can we do about it? But it's not easy.
Gracias, Ainé.
Thank you, Ainé. What is needed? You were saying that the regulation is complex, the protocols, confidentiality, to leave people out from the federation. However, you said that it's difficult to implement it. What is needed for this kind of regulation to be effective?
I think the operational independence that I spoke about is really important, and awareness, but I think what's needed is for our national federations to get serious about it as well, and we need resources. I'm quite lucky, I work in a federation, we're based in Switzerland, we have some nice sponsors, we have 100 people in the headquarters, there's 10 of us in our legal department, we have 3 people, we don't do this, we do this as part of all our other responsibilities, but we have some resources to do this, and we had the resources, and that's an important thing, to get some formal training before we took this on. But we're talking here with national federations of different sizes. Maybe some have 50 staff, 60 staff, maybe some have 3 staff, maybe some have no staff. I mean, I was talking with Olga before, and she's a volunteer, and there are many organizations, federations, and they're just volunteers. And yet we're asking them to do this important work, and it's not just important, it's absolutely necessary. But if you don't have funding, if you don't have support from your local government, from your sports ministry for this kind of things, these are the kind of projects that get left to the side and say, let's give a grant to build a new training centre, let's give a grant to send them to a training camp, all really good. But you know, what happens if at the training camp or at the academy there's abuse and harassment happening? Where's your budget to deal with that? So I think one of the challenges is to have the resources and the resources from the top to support this kind of work.
Absolutament, sense recursos serà molt complicat.
Yes, absolutely. It'll be very hard to do this sort of work without resources. Since you're in the Global Boxing Federation, have any other federations taken an interest in this kind of initiative? Have you inspired others?
I don't know if we're inspirational or if when we talk about this, they're just so afraid of starting themselves. But one of the benefits, we're based in Lausanne in Switzerland, so that's where the International Olympic Committee is based. And because of that, a lot of other international federations are based there too. So we have a nice little network among the federations. I know lawyers in other federations, and actually, when we started this a couple of years ago, we really felt, you know, we need to come together, we need to share our knowledge and our resources on this. So we kind of proactively organised a couple of meetings, a couple of workshops ourselves with people from other international federations, and we said, listen, we've worked on these templates and these rules, here they are, you can have them, copy-paste, just for your own federation. And then sometimes, you know, we have informal calls. A colleague who works in the rowing federation, she called me up one time saying, you know, we have this case, obviously not giving me any names or details, but saying, have you had something similar? He said, yeah, actually we had somewhere similar, and you know, or we worked with this law firm in that country who is the same country as you. They were really helpful for us on some of the local law issues. So it's a lot of knowledge sharing, and it's not equestrian's problem, it's not rowing's problem, it's sports problems, and it's especially female sports problems. So for us, the more sharing, the more collaborative we can be in this, the better. What would be amazing, and I think what's needed and what should be coming down the track, is a kind of international body to deal with this, like the likes of WADA for doping. I always say that this issue is the new doping, in that doping now, we know it, we know how to deal with it, it still goes on, but there are structures in place. But for this kind of issue, it's my federation has one set of rules, the cycling federation has another set of rules, and there's no kind of recognition of what is the standard, what is the correct process. And we take it seriously, but just because you're an athlete that works in a sport that doesn't take it seriously, why should you have less rights? Why should you be less protected? So I think the time for leaving federations to do this by themselves, hopefully, will be a thing of the past. But I mean, we need to pressurize top people in international sport, and at the national level as well, pressurize top people to set up these kind of bodies so that the message goes out that no matter what sport you are, there needs to be a basic protection for your athletes.
Moltes gràcies, Ainé. Sí, algú vol fer...
Thank you very much, Ainé, for this. If anybody has any comments, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll go on to Sara Massini, who's a psychologist who has a focus on young people's health and intervention. She's been involved in ENGSO as a volunteer. She's also the Secretary General. ENGSO is a European sports NGO representing national confederations and national Olympic committees. One of its main aims is to promote grassroots sports for healthier and more egalitarian citizenry. Now, Sara, what has ENGSO done recently for equality?
To thank OFEC for inviting us, for organizing this very important moment, because, you know, it's really crucial that when we talk about equality, and especially women equality, we need to learn from each other. So it's not enough to talk about our neighborhood. We need to talk and discuss with the others, learn from the others, and move forward. So thank you very much for organizing this, and thank you very much for inviting us. Let's say that equality is one of our main priority. We worked a lot in the topic of gender, and then we enlarged a bit the topic of equality to everything, because, you know, women are not just women. Women, they may come from different culture, different ethnicity. They can come from different, let's say, economical background. They can have, you know, like we saw yesterday, different sexual orientation, and this impact. It's so. To avoid the double or multiple discrimination. So we have this approach more, let's say, transversal, more horizontal to equality. Now, if I have to talk about one of the projects that it's more, let's say, impactful during the years, I have to talk about SCORE, which stands for Strengthening Coaching to Raise Equality. It was a project held in 2015-2016, and till today is valid, and they are still working on it. Why? We realized that in order to have more participation in sport for women, we need to have definitely more role models, but also we need to have more coaches that are women, because sometimes they need to feel confident, and also, exactly as the colleague yesterday said, you know, the population is 50-50. So if you don't look at the other 50, then you simply can provide half of the services for the population, meaning that the time schedule, the opportunity, and the programs that you can offer are always the same. And so just one part of the population can really reach. So you need to enlarge the opportunity. So it's not just a matter, it's definitely a matter of fairness and rights, but it's also a matter of, you know, sustainability, economical aspect, you know, impactful on society. So we decided to work on empowering women athletes to go into coaching. You know, one of the big lessons we learned is that the problem is not that we don't have rules, or that we don't have recommendation, or we don't have policy. The main problem is that we don't apply those. We don't have action, we don't have practices. And so even if, when you speak to, you know, president of federation or secretary general, they're ready to say, yeah, that's true, we need to have more women. We want to have more women. Yeah, but this is not enough. So you need to do something. So through this program, we actually put several countries around the table, and we developed a toolkit, concrete toolkit, from which federations, sport federations, and sport clubs can start their action plan, how they can recruit, train, and retain women in coaching. There are several barriers that you know, prevent women to go into coaching. We already mentioned all of them, you know, maternity, time schedule, pressure, some competitiveness that sometimes is not fair with men. So basically, sometimes self-esteem. So sometimes they don't feel they're okay, because sometimes, you know, there's this stereotype that to be coach, you need to be strong, you need to be man, masculine. Which is definitely not true. You know, it's likely like a teacher or a professor. Everyone has his own style to teach. The important thing is you know the sport, you know the rules, and you let them pass, you know, this information. So why it was so important and why it's so important? Because this toolkit, which is still valid today, helped a lot of sport federations to start a program to help many athletes to go into coaching. And we really managed to increase the number. Many federations also at international level applied this toolkit to their internal policy. So we have now World Rugby that they took the toolkit, translated in their own policy, and they have their toolkit. We have Rowing Federation. And this year also I was invited from a rugby contest festival in France to start exposing their young athletes to this idea that they also can be coaches, but also that become coaches is more complicated than for men. And when I was speaking to them about this, they say, wow, no, I didn't think about it. It is true, it's more complex. You need to help us. And this is exactly from where we start moving from that. So the big impact is that the toolkit is still here, can be translated, and can be adapted. So if someone wants really to start increasing the number of women into coaching in their reality, this toolkit is really a good guide. So can be really start saying different concrete steps to be done. But now what we need and why we have more projects on equality, we cannot say we reached the point. This is not true. We started the process. We need the support of men. We need that, you know, coach men are ready to say, you are also good in that. Why not you join? We need to have them on our side, as it was said yesterday. And this is also what happened because the program of SCORE implies to have mentoring program. Women need to be mentored. And men can be their mentor. They can help them, you know, understanding. So yeah, basically this is what we learn. And now from there, now we have a new project that is Equality at Large, trying to create action plan. Because again, it's not enough to discuss about it. It's not enough to say we want to have more equality. We need to have concrete steps to be followed. So SCORE Toolkit was the first step, and now we are trying to go into equality action plan. How sport clubs can start a program, a process to really open up and be fair for everyone.
Molt interessant saber que existeixen eines ja.
That's really interesting. We're talking about specific tools and toolkits and knowing that some federations are actually using them. So you belong to a European organization, Sara. We here sometimes have the perception that the countries of Southern Europe, including Catalonia, are lagging behind the countries of the North, and the North starts at Germany. So what's your perception? Are we really lagging that far behind?
Because this is not how I feel, but this is what I know. So first of all, we need to say that north of Europe is north of Europe, so it's not Germany. Germany is, you know, in the middle of Europe. So north of Europe is Denmark, north of Europe is Finland, north of Europe is Norway, is, you know, Sweden, Ireland. And we have to say, because numbers is clear. And you know, when we look also at the news on the newspaper and TV, I mean, they clearly you know, more advanced in gender equality. They definitely leave a lot of space. It's already in their mind that it's possible for any women to take any spot, but not just in sport. They have presidents, you know, of governments. They have many politicians in the place. So it's not a sensation. It's something we can see, we can touch. And they have a lot of policy to support this. This, I want to be clear, this does not mean they reach, you know, the top. This is not true. The work is still need to be done. But clearly they start from a different point, you know, in a continuum from zero equality to super equality, there is different level. And they're a bit advanced. Does not mean that they reach already the goal. They still need to work. And and for instance, in the last expert group from the European Commission we were seated in, we of course were discussing about how we can increase gender equality in sport. What are the policy, what are the recommendations we need to look at? And it's clear that what we were asking for, so, and I'm talking about from, I'm Italian, so I'm also from the south. so what we were looking at and what we were pushing for was clearly starting from the grassroots, because we still need to reach this participation, this more equal participation in all the matter. So to practice sport, to also to, let's say, having coaches, as I said, but coaches also at grassroots level, not talking already to the top, but grassroots, to all the roles, the top roles and presidents, in the board. While of course they were pushing for something else, because they are a bit advanced. So they were pushing for, the elite, because they already have a lot of participation at the grassroots. But the elite, they still find this, how to say, the glass, that they cannot back through. So of course, they're a bit advanced. We have to say we cannot, close our eyes. But still, work needs to be done. And the point here is not to say they are better or we're worse. This is not the point. We have different history. We have different situation, context. We have different countries, environment, which is count. So we simply need to see what are they doing and what we can learn from them and what they can learn from us. So this is the point, and I think this platform here is exactly what we need in order to learn from each other and move forward on that to continue go to that direction.
Tant de bo, i penso que totes les que...
Well, I hope that I assume that I know that those of us who are here and most of the people among the audience are here to ensure that there's more equality in sports. Thank you very much, Sara. I go on to Milena de Murga, who has a degree in science and psychology and criminology. She works for ESADE. She has a lot of experience on this matter. She is in charge of the social policy area at IWISC, so she's one of my colleagues, one of my co-workers, rather. Milena, I know a lot about your work at IWISC. We really believe in including a gender perspective in any kind of action undertaken. Currently, you are leading an international project for us, which is called the Gap Woman Project, intending to create more female licensees. Well, first of all, thank you, Mary. Thank you to all of you here for sharing your experience. Many federations not represented here are undertaking activities and promoting a drive to have more and more women in sports, not only as practitioners, but also as coaches, as managers, and so forth. I want to congratulate all of the federations attending here and congratulate IWISC for their work in promoting women's roles. We know about the program. Well, there will be more information of that. We in the Integration and Social Impact Department are trying to promote having more women. Rather than the Gap Women Project, I'd like to talk about others right now. Insert Sport is about work training for young people at risk of social exclusion, and we're trying to ensure that girls at risk of social exclusion can become coaches and so forth. A lot of federations are on board, and as others have mentioned, we're encountering issues. This is a program that is open to all NGOs and social action organizations, and what they do is they refer boys to us but not girls. So I also have a background in social work and NGOs, and the fact is that the NGOs don't seem to view sport as a driver of change in this regard, and don't seem to think of girls as potential coaches and athletes. So we have to raise awareness amongst these NGOs, and we think this is absolutely essential. So that said, I'll describe the GAP project. Thank you, Mary. We've been driving for the presence of women in sports. This is an Erasmus Plus sport project. There are 7 countries involved, 10 organizations, and then ENGSO is one of them. And actually, Sara is one of the partners. I'll tell you a bit about the role of each partner. We have think tanks, universities, sports confederations, small clubs, confederation umbrellas, an umbrella organization, which is ENGSO. So we have several organizations representing the North and the South as well. Mary, you pointed out the need to combine the perhaps more innovative experience of the North and then the issues experienced in the South, in order to increase the number of federation licensees. Because when I joined UFEC personally, I was kind of scared to see what the gaps were. You know, there's such a huge gap between men and women. We thought we needed to have more women holding licenses. No, we've been working on this for 3 years, which doesn't sound like much, but it's been quite a time. Could you just sum up what kind of results you're trying to achieve? Well, mainly we want to have more federation, where more license holders in the federations. I mean, we have a lot of licenses here in our country, but that's not the case across the board. So we wanted a literature review to see what's going on, not only in Europe, but in the world, to see what kind of drives have worked. And so we've collected the information, and then on that basis we contact federations and have focus group sessions to find out what's actually being done, what's working, what hasn't worked. And by collecting all this information, plus the literature review, we're going to create, at the role of ENGSO, we're going to create content in order to launch a European-wide campaign on around March 8th and around the European Cup of Sport. There's also a federation. The Federation of Subaquatic Activities is also on board, and other federations are supporting federations. So they will cover the outreach to clubs to ensure that women learn about these sports, which are often sports that are less known. So the campaigns will be launched, and we have a feed tank, ISCA, which will in parallel set up highly visual platforms so that any federation that wishes to do so in Europe to access this information for free, so that they can figure out how to implement change, how to go about it. I mean, I really want more women in my club, or I really want more women in my federation, so what to do about it? So there will be tips, advice, ideas of actions that will actually have been tested on International Women's Day and the Global Day for Sport, so that they'll know, look, this kind of thing works, you can do this kind of thing online, and then this other action. We at UFEC also always seek synergy with other groups and institutions. You have to work together with others, otherwise you're out there on your own. So, well, Mary, I don't want to talk for too long, but anyway, Olga, go ahead. You also gave us the Donna Plus Sport award. We've been awarded that, so we'll be working even more closely. Oh well, thank you for letting me know. Thank you very much, Milena. Thank you very much, all of you. We're out of time now, but in any case, I would like to encourage you to buttonhole them during the coffee break and just hear more from them. I hope you've been inspired by what they've had to say. They're all women in sports. Today was a time for talking. Today is a time for talking, but we also have to do. So I'd like to encourage you to keep doing and to thank you very much. Oh, Lydia, what did you have to say? Well, in our website, we have all of the indicators. So if you're interested in using those indicators, they're applicable to any kind of sport or club. So you've got indicators and you can create a dashboard quite easily and tailor it to whatever your needs might be. Thank you very much. And you also have Sarah's toolkit. Anything you need for about that, just contact us and we'll get it to you. Thank of the Spanish Association for Women in Professional Sports, Beatriz Alvarez of the Professional Women's Football League, Alejandra Salmeron, Senior Legal Counsel and the International Automotive Sports Federation, Erica Montemor, FIFA Head of Transfer and Player Status, Josep Maria Figueres, Head of Marketing at the Youth Sports Agency, one of the biggest in Europe, the biggest in Spain, representative of Alexia Botella and Ona Carbonell, and Ruth Villar, a sports journalist who will be moderating this session. See you later.
Sí, no? Hola a tots, a tothom, què tal?
Good morning, everyone. How are you feeling? A bit cold? Well, I didn't know if, there was a gender perspective with the AC in the room, because women tend to get a bit colder than men. Well, this is the panel about leadership. However, I believe that all of the experiences we've heard so far in this Congress could be an example of leadership, because we have been hearing very powerful women speaking to us. And this still happens, right? When you have women in leading positions, they tend to be brilliant and they have to prove themselves. Whereas with men, this doesn't happen that often. We expect more from women. And I believe that this Congress is quite interesting because of that. Maribel was saying, once we achieve equality, is that when a mediocre woman holds a place of leadership, she will not be asked to do more, because that's what happens with men. So Maribel is a vice president of IWISC, and we would like to start with her. What does it mean to hold this executive position in the field of sports? Well, good morning, everyone. To have a leading role, to play a leading role in sports means sharing your time, your leisure time, your weekend, also being responsible. Apparently her mic is not working. I have a loud voice, she says. I don't need a mic, but she really needs it, otherwise we cannot translate. I was saying that you need to give up your time and to, after having heard me, maybe it's only natural that we don't have that many women in these positions, because that's the idea we tend to convey, which is real, mind you. I mean, we are sharing our time every day, and most of these positions are